بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. As you remember, we discussed the story of Salaamaan and Absaal. There were some versions that Khaja didn't like that much, in the sense that they didn't seem to match what Ibn Sina had in mind. Then he said, after writing his commentary on Al-Isharat and al-Tanbihat, later he came across two other stories, and the first was what we discussed last week, and now inshallah we want to discuss the second one that Khaja thinks this is actually the one that Ibn Sina must have meant, because there is reference to this in Ibn Sina's own work, and therefore it seems to be more appropriate, plus it matches more. Although I personally think still it's not really 100% corresponding to what Ibn Sina said. Now let's see, maybe you can see yourself what's the situation. So if you go towards the end of page 53, وَأَمَّا الْقِصَّةُ الثَّانِيَةُ, but the second story, وهي التي وقعت إلي بعد 20 سنة من إتمام الشرح. And this is the story that came to me, I received it, I came across after 20 years of finishing the commentary on Al-Isharat and al-Tanbihat. Allah knows how many years it took to write that, but after finishing that, he came across this story after 20 years. As you remember, I said maybe two times at least that this first story also he received it afterwards, but he didn't say how many years later. We don't know. But this one he says after 20 years. Perhaps he found that first earlier and the second later. وَهِيَ مَنْسُوبَةٌ إِلَى الشَّيْخِ. This story is attributed to Sheikh himself. وَكَأَنَّهَا هِيَ الَّتِي أَشَارَ الشَّيْخُ إِلَيْهَا. It seems that this is the one that Sheikh al-Ra'is Ibn Sina referred to, because as we will say, it is something that has come and occurred in the list of the works of Ibn Sina. But as you see, Khaja is not 100% sure, because it's كأنها, as if this is the one that Sheikh al-Ra'is referred to. فإن أبا عبيدة الجرجاني أورد في فهرست تصانيف الشيخ. Abu Ubaidat al-Jurjani, in the index, Fihrist means index. It can be used for table of contents, but here it's like an index for the works and books of Sheikh al-Ra'is. Tasanif is plural for tasnif, means compilation. So what he has put there is ذكر قصة سلامان وأبصال له. So he has mentioned that Ibn Sina has a work on Salaamaan wa Absaal. Also later we will say that in his Risala on Qada and Qadar, he mentions something about this story. So ذكر قصة سلامان وأبصال له. له means للشيخ الرئيس. So he has inserted awrada fi fihris, he has put in that index of the works of Ibn Sina the mention of this story for Ibn Sina. وَحَاصِلُ الْقِصَّةِ. Because this qissa is very detailed or lengthy, we don't mention the exact wording of what is from Ibn Sina. But hasil means the overall, the brief summary of the story is this. And those of you who are familiar with philosophy, you understand it much better. But if you are not familiar with philosophy, inshallah, still you can understand something. Traditionally in our houses, to study Irfan comes after studying philosophy. So you first study mantiq, then you study philosophy, then you study Irfan al-Nazari. And also sometimes Irfan al-Amali, but mostly Irfan al-Nazari definitely needs philosophy. This is not our main discussion. Our main discussion is Irfan al-Amali, so we don't need that much of philosophy. But those who have that background, it helps them a lot. My request is to listen very carefully to the details of this story. This story is not kind of necessarily a true story. It's not a history. It's just a story, but it has lots of meanings. And also, this doesn't mean that we approve this story or Ibn Sina approve this story, or these are things to be generalized, or for example, if we talk about a lady, it means that all ladies are like this. It's not at all in that way. It is just a way that whoever made this story, either Ibn Sina or someone else, but Ibn Sina liked it, thought that he can use these figures and these metaphorical figures to convey the idea, because ideas are abstract, and one way of making them more understandable and plus more relatable is to bring those abstract ideas into concrete examples or stories or parables. So there are few things that help to understand and relate better to the ideas which are abstract. So the summary and the overall conclusion of the story is this: أن سلامان و أبسال كانا أخوين شقيقين. These were two brothers who were shaqiq. Normally shaqiq is used for brothers and sisters from the same father and mother, so means very close to each other. وكان أبسال أصغرهما سنا. Absal was younger brother, so Salaamaan was the elder and he was young. وقد تربى بين يدي أخيه. Absal grew up in front of, before the eyes of his brother. ونشأ صبيح الوجه عاقلا متأدبا عالما عفيفا شجاعا. Nashv, nasha'a comes from nashv, means growth. Nashe in Arabic means children who are growing up. For example, we have a book, تعليم العربية للناشئين. So nasha'a means grew up. Sabih al-wajh, his face was beautiful. Aqila, he was a intelligent and wise person. Muta'addiban, very polite, and a person who was observing manners. Aliman, knowledgeable. Afifan, he had modesty and chastity. Shuja'an, he was brave. As you see, These are very important qualities, and actually these are qualities that in Ilm al-Akhlaq we mentioned that if you have balance of the faculty for anger, you would have shaja'ah. If you have the balance for the faculty of appetites, then you would have iffah. If you have balance for the faculty of thinking, then you would have wisdom. So he had all these virtues. Inshallah, we will talk what does Absaal stand for. وَقَدْ أَشَقَتْهُ إِمْرَأَةُ Salaamaan. Now somehow becomes like a story of Yusuf and Zulaykha, but not exactly the same, but there are some similarities. So the wife of Salaamaan, Salaamaan was the older brother. The wife of Salaamaan fell in love with Absaal. He is a beautiful person, he is aqil, he has all the virtues, a nice person. وَقَالَتْ لِلسَّلَامَانِ. This woman said to her husband, أخلطه بأهلك ليتعلم منه أولادك. She said to her husband, mix your brother with your family, let him be with us so that your children can learn from him. The brother didn't think that she has a plan. So yes, it's a good idea that it's my brother, he's very virtuous, he's a nice person, and is very good if my children can learn from him and become like him. But she had her own plan. She wanted to be closer to this man because she loved him. فَأَشَارَ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامَانِ بِذَلِكَ. So the older brother said to Absaal, who was younger brother, that come to our home and be with us, or visit us more, or stay with us anyway. He said, you should mix with us. وَأَبَى أَبْصَالَ عَنْ مُخَالَطَةِ النِّسَاءِ. Absaal refused to be mixed with women because it's his brother wife is not mahram to him, and he didn't want to be with non-mahram living together. فقال له سلمان إن امرأتي لك بمنزلة The elder brother said that my wife for you is like mother, because he was younger and he grew up before the brother's eyes, and so was much younger, so it's like your mother. Okay, so وَدَخَلَ عَلَيْهَا وَأَكْرَمَتْهُ. So he went to their house and visited that woman, and that woman respected him, but وَأَظْهَرَتْ عَلَيْهِ بَعْدَ حِينٍ فِي خَلْوَةٍ عِشْقَهَا لَهُ. But after some time, when they were alone, she said to Absaal that I love you. فَانْقَبَضَ أَبْصَالَ مِنْ ذَلِكَ. Absaal was shocked and withdrew to himself more, or you can say distance himself. وَدَرَتْ. Dara comes from diraya, means to understand. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ we say. Darat means she realized, she understood. أَنَّهُ لَا يُطَاوِعُهَا. She realized that Absaal is not going to obey her and cooperate. Absaal is a man of virtue and would not accept to have affair with his brother's wife. فَقَالَتْ لِلسَّلَامَانِ. So this woman said to her husband, زوج أخاك بأختي فأملكه بها. So she made a plan. She said, your brother must get married. Marry him to my sister. And in this way, she wanted to have a control over Absaal. وقالت لأختها. But she said to her sister, of course it's a story, no one, I don't think in the real life would do this, or would be very, very rare, very, very rare. But anyway, she said to her sister, don't think, I really wanted him to marry you. I married him to you in order to be for both of us. إني ما زوجتك بأبصال ليكون لك خاصة دوني. I didn't marry him to you in order to be only for you. بل لكي أساهمك في ما زوجتك, and here also be أساهمك because مؤنث is female. I married him to you so that I would share him with you. Musahama, sahm means to share. وقالت لأبصال. Then she told to Absaal. So, she had very kind of vicious plan. She said to Absaal, إن أختي بكر حية لا تدخل عليها نهارا ولا تكلمها إلا بعد أن تستأنس بك. She said, my sister is virgin. She has not been seeing any man. She is not touched by any man. She is very hayya. Hayya means has haya, very modest. So now that you are marrying, you have to be patient and you take your time. Don't go to her during the day. Means she feels shy, for example, to look at you face to face, and don't speak to her unless after she is acquainted with you. She has ons with you. She's familiar with you. وليلة الزفاف باتت امرأة سلامان في فراش أختها فدخل أبصال عليها. Then when was the night of the wedding, this woman slept in place of her sister and was hiding her identity and thought that Absaal would not realize, and after he realizes that it was me, then it's over. So فدخل أبصال عليها فلم تملك نفسها. But she was not able to be patient. So she touched with her body, the body of with her breast, the body of Absaal, and Absaal said, this is not what a virgin woman do. He was very virtuous person and was surprised that how this can be done by a person who is not married before. وقد تغيم السماء في الوقت بغيب مظلم فلاح فيه برق. At that time, sky was clouded in the night and clouded, very dark, so you could not see who is there. But فَلَاحَ فِيهِ بَرْقٌ. Then a flash of light came. أَبْصَرَ بِضَوْئِهِ وَجْهَهَا. Light of that flash, that like thunder, enlightened and illuminated the face of this woman. So he realized that, oh, this is that woman, not his wife. فأزعجها وخرج من عندها وعزم على مفارقتها. So he pushed her away from himself and left and was determined to separate from her. So it was good that he was not influenced and was not tempted. But he could not say this to his brother, that your wife is doing these things with me. قال لسلامان إني أريد أن أفتح لك البلاد. Salaamaan was a king. So he said to his brother, I want to go and conquer for you some countries, some lands, or defeat your enemies. Anyway, I want to bring some victory for you, and I am capable of that. فإني قادر على ذلك. So basically he wanted to be away. Even he wanted to prefer to endanger his life, but to be away. وأخذ جيشا. So he took an kind of army from his brother. So he gave him some troops, some soldiers, etc. وحارب أمما. And he fought against some nations, some different groups of people. وفتح البلاد لأخيه برا وبحرا شرقا وغربا. And he conquered for his brother, who was the king, different countries by fighting in the land and also in the sea. And so sometime on feet, sometime on sheep. So sharqan wa qarban, towards the east and the west. Of course, these are not invasion. These are meant to refer to some other ideas. Inshallah, we'll explain. من غير منة عليه, without putting any kind of minna on his brother. He didn't want to oblige his brother to say, I had a favor upon you. He just did this in order to help. وكان أول ذي قرنين استولى على وجه الأرض. And he was the first Dhul Qarnayn who became dominant all over the earth, the world which was known at that time. So they had very large and great territory. Then we go to the next page, please. After he finished these battles, to be more precise, رجع إلى وطنه. لما رجع إلى وطنه وحسب أنها نسيته. Then he thought, okay, maybe by this time she has forgotten me. عادت إلى المعاشقة. But that lady was not stopping. وقصدت معانقته, and wanted to hug him. فأبى وأزعجها. He refused and again distanced her, and annoyed. Az'aj means to annoy. Annoyed her in the sense of distance her and didn't cooperate. وَظَهَرَ لَهُمْ عَدُوٌّ. Now an enemy emerged for their country. فَوَجَّهَ سَلَامَانَ أَبْسَالًا إِلَيْهِ فِي جُيُوشِهِ. So the king sent again Absal with some army to defend against that enemy. And this lady, because she was, although she loved him, but it was a selfish love and possessive love, so she became somehow angry, like Zulaykha. So what she did, she distributed some money among the commanders of the army. فرقت المرة. فرقت means وزعت. She distributed some money في رؤساء الجيش, the commanders of the army. She distributed some money ليرفضوه في المعركة, so that they abandon him in the battle. It's their own country. Instead of she being helping, she doesn't bother. You know, she's it's some kind of madness. She is happy to take revenge even if the enemy is going to win. فَفَعَلُوا. So the commanders took the money and listened, didn't help. وَظَفَرَ بِهِ الْأَعْدَاءُ. Although he was a very good commander, he was the one who brought lots of victories. But what can you do when the commanders of your army betray you? So enemies managed to arrest him. ظفر به الأعداء وتركوه جريحا وبه دماء حسبوه ميتا. They found him, but he was injured. His body was covered with blood. They thought he's dead. They left him. So he was almost dead. They left him. There is no one who take care of him. But فعطفت عليه مرضعة من حيوانات الوحش. One animal, wild animal, not domestic animal. We will mention later why we say wild animal. One female wild animal, like for example, I don't know, a lion, for example, or something like that, felt that she should help. عطفت عليه مرضعة. مرضعة means this was a female and was fostering her own baby or babies, so had some affection towards him and started feeding him, and he used the milk of this animal till he was healed and became okay. إلى انتعش وعوفي. He was healed. He reached the level of afia. ورجع إلى Salaamaan. He went back to his brother, to the king, but by that time the enemies have surrounded him and took control and humiliated the brother, the king. وَقَدْ أَحَاطَ بِهِ الْأَعْدَاءُ وَأَذَلُّوهُ. He returned to his brother, and by that time the enemies have surrounded him and humiliated him. وَهُوَ حَزِينٌ مِنْ فَقْدِ أَخِيهِ. But his brother was at that time mourning and in grief because he thought Absaal is killed, and he was, despite all the problems that he had, he was particularly very sad about losing his brother.
بحمدك يا إلهي بدأت قولي وجئتك خاضعا.
فأدركه أبصال. But Absaal then came back and took some people as organized an army, formed an army, and tried to free his brother and the country. أدركه أبصال وأخذ الجيش والعدة. So he took the army and some عدة. عدة means equipment. وكر. كر, you say كرار. كر means to attack. So he attacked enemies. وبددهم, destroyed them. وأسر عظيمهم, and he took many of them as captive, or the great figure of them, or many of them. عظيمهم either means the person who was their leader, or عظيمهم means many of them. وَسَوَّى الْمُلْكَ لَأَخِيهِ. He sorted out again the kingdom and governance for his brother. But this woman is not stopping. She is not regretting. She is not changing her behavior. She has really become mad. ثُمَّ وَاطَأَتِ الْمَرْأَةُ طَابِخَهُ وَطَاعِمَهُ. This comma after mar'a is not necessary, should not be there. وَاطَأَتِ الْمَرْأَةُ طَابِخَهُ وَطَاعِمَهُ. Muwata'a means to conspire. Tawta'a, in Farsi we say tawta'a for conspiracy. In Arabic they say mu'amara for conspiracy. But this is also means mu'amara, means conspire. So what she did, she now bribed the person who was cooking for Absaal and the person who was feeding Absaal, because he was a very high in position, so he was not cooking. Someone was cooking, someone was preparing and serving the food. So she bribed them to put poison in the food of Absaal. What is the crime of Absaal? He has been very modest. Even he didn't report to his brother what his wife was doing. He did all the things to, for the country, for his brother, and freed them again. But this woman is not stopping. وَاطَأَتِ الْمَرْأَةُ طَابِخَهُ وَطَاعِمَهُ. Tabikh is the one who does tabkh. We say tabakh, sometimes. Tabikh means the cook. وَطَاعِمَهُ, the one who was giving him food. وَأَعْتَتْهُمَا مَالًا, gave them money. فَسَقَيَاهُ السَّمَّ, they gave him poison. وَكَانَ صَدِّيقًا كَبِيرًا نَسَبًا وَعِلْمًا وَعَمَلًا. He was a truthful person and he was great in his nasab, in his genealogy. He was coming from a very good family. Ilman, he was great in knowledge, he was great in practice, but he was killed. وَاغْتَمَّ مِنْ مَوْتِهِ أَخُوهُ Salaamaan, the king, became very, very sad because of his death of Absaal. وَاعْتَزَلَ مُلْكَهُ, and he then didn't show that much attention to the kingdom. وَفَوَّضَ إِلَى بَعْضِ مُعَاهِدِيهِ, he left the kingdom to some of the people who had some treaty with him, some of the allies, you can say. وَنَاجَى رَبَّهُ, and he start whispering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he didn't know what has happened. Why my brother is dead? So after this munajat and really having no attachment to dunya, leaving everything, sadness, because sometimes when you are in the condition of suffering and you have no attachment to dunya, sometimes you start understanding things. Allah may inspire you. فَأَوْهَا إِلَيْهِ جَلِيَّةَ الْحَالِ, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired him. What was the story? He realized that, this was a conspiracy. His wife and the cook and the one who was serving food, they had betrayed. So what he did was he gave them from the same poison. فَسَقَى الْمَرْأَةَ وَالطَّابِخَ وَالطَّاعِمَةَ ثَلَاثَتَهُمْ مَا سَقَوْا أَخَاهُ وَدَرَجُوا. So the poison that they had given to Absaal and had put in his food, he gave, and then he killed his wife and the cook and the person who was serving food. فَهَذَا مَا اشْتَمَلَتْ عَلَيْهِ الْقِصَّةِ. Khaja Nasiruddin Rahmatullah Alayhi says this is what the story included or involved. So this is the, the core of the story. We didn't say all the words, but this is the, core of the story. Now, what's the interpretation? This is the part that is a little bit philosophical. وَتَعْوِيلُهُ. Now, what's the interpretation? What these things refer to? Because this is symbolic. أن السلامان مثل للنفس الناطقة. Salaamaan here, this king who is the brother of Absaal, the older brother, is an example for nafs al-natiqah, for human soul. We have nafs al-nabatiyya, we have nafs al-haywaniyya, we have nafs al-natiqah. We have plant or vegetative soul, which is available in plants. We have animal soul, which is available in animals. And we have nafs al-natiqah, which is the rational soul, which is available in human beings. Of course, according to Mullah Sadra, human beings have nafs al-nabatiyya and nafs al-haywaniyya as well. It's like a three-floor building. When you are in the third floor, you have the lower floors as well. And also, it's very good for understanding what happens when someone is in vegetative state. If someone, had, for example, brain death, so it means that it's now functioning at the level of nafs nabatiyya. Of course, it doesn't mean that the human soul is finished or is dead. No, human soul is there, but body is now run by nafs nabatiyya. Body is not run by nafs natiqah. Nafs natiqah is now separated from running and managing body. So, Salaamaan is nafs natiqah. Absaal, this younger brother who grew up before the eyes of his brother, and he was very virtuous, very nice, very beautiful, is example for aql al-nazari, lil-aql al-nazari, for the theoretical intellect. We have aql al-nazari, we have aql amali, the theoretical intellect and the practical intellect. The theoretical intellect is responsible for understanding everything, including kulliyat, universal concept. We are human beings because we can understand universal concepts. And again, in philosophy, we said there are different levels for aql. We start with aql bil quwwa, and then we go higher. The highest is aql mustafad. And aql mustafad is the one who has all different types of things that aql can know, and becomes alaman aqlaniyan muzahiran lil alam al ayni. In any way, Absaal is an example lil aql nazari al mutaraqi ila an hasala aqlan mustafadan, which has reason, means to rise, reason, till it has become aql mustafad. Mustafad means benefited or acquired, but it is a terminology in philosophy. Aql mustafad is the one that has all the things that could know. وَهُوَ دَرَجَتُهَا فِي الْعِرْفَانِ. Aql mustafad is the highest level. So we can say aql nazari is rising, and the highest would be what? Aql mustafad. This is why Ibn Sina said, Absaal darajatuka fil irfan. He said, Salaamaan mathalun lak wa Absaal darajatuka fil irfan. So this aql nazari can rise and reach the highest, which is aql mustafat. This makes sense, especially according to Masha'un, and Ibn Sina was Mashai, was a pragmatic philosopher, because for them perfection is very much a matter of aql and knowledge. A perfect human being, according to Masha'un, is the one who reaches the level of aql mustafat, is the one which has become similar to the external world, but in knowledge and understanding. سيرورة الإنسان عالما عقلانيا مضاهيا للعالم العيني. وامرأة سلامان, the third figure in this story, the wife of Salaamaan, القوة البدنية الأمارة بالشهوة والغضب, is the bodily power or faculty which commands with two things, shahwa and ghadab, appetites and anger. We need to have these two things. There is no problem in having these two things. If we didn't have any shahwa, we wouldn't eat, we wouldn't drink, we wouldn't marry. If we didn't have ghadab, we wouldn't defend ourselves. We need these things. But the problem is when it becomes ammara bishahwat wal ghadab, when they go to extreme, when they take control over aql, that's the problem. Otherwise, these are all needed. Al-ammaratu bishahwat wal ghadab. This quwwiyya badaniyya, which is related to our animal side, very much asks us to go after shahwa and ghadab. Al-muttahidat bin nafs, this is connected, it's united with souls, united in the sense that they are connected. In philosophy we had this discussion that there is a relation between body and soul, and this relation is a kind of al-ittihad al-inzimami. They are put next to each other. They are not mixed like oxygen and hydrogen, but they are not also separate, that like, for example, you put one book next to another book. There is a close relation between body and soul, but still they are not merging in each other. They cannot merge in each other. They cannot become a third thing, but they have some connection with each other. Sa'iratun shakhsan minan nas. So this body and soul together make a person. Every person is a body and soul. وَإِشْقُهَا لِأَبْصَالِ. The love that this woman had for Absaal stands for what? مَيْلُهَا إِلَى تَسْخِيرِ الْعَقْلِ. We said Absaal was very intelligent, and Absaal, we said it's the good side of us, which can become up to aql mustafat. This woman wanted to have control over, Absaal means wanted to have aql under the control of ghadab and shahwa. ميلها إلى تسخير العقل كما سخرت سائر القوى. In the same way that she has managed to capture and control other faculties, she wanted to control aql ليكون مؤتمرا لها, so that aql becomes under her command. Mu'tamir and amir. Amir is the one who commands. Mu'tamir is the one who takes the command, who listens, is mu'tamir. I'tamara means to take the command and obey. So she wanted aql to listen to her commands for what? في تحصيل مآربها الفانية, in order to acquire her benefits which are expiring, which are perishable, for worldly things. وَإِبَاؤُهُ. But Absal was refusing. What does it mean? It means that Aql doesn't want to come down. انجذاب العقل إلى عالمه. Aql is attracted towards his own or its own realm and universe, which is high, because Aql wants to go towards malakut, mujarradat, aql fa'al, higher levels, not come down to dunya and level of animals and plants, etc. If we can go to the next page, please. وأختها التي ملكتها. We said this woman had a sister and she wanted her sister to marry Absal. That sister who has no problem, she's Bekr, she's virgin, she's Hayya, she has Haya, she seems very kind of nice person, but under, unfortunately, control of her sister. Al-Quwwatul Amaliyya is the practical, is example here for practical faculty. Al-Musammat bil-Aql al-Amali. We call it practical intellect, but practical intellect cannot do anything without Aql al-Nazari or something else. Either Aql al-Nazari should run it, which will be great, or if desires of shahwa and qazab, then that would become a problem. But here is al-muti lil-Aql al-Nazari. It's supposed to be muti, obedient to Aql al-Nazari. Wa huwa an-nafs al-mutma'inna. And this Aql al-Nazari is the one that if he's in charge, then our nafs becomes nafs mutma'inna. But if Aql al-Nazari is not obeyed and is not listened and is imprisoned, then we would have all the time problems. Or if it is still fighting but it's not in control, again we have disturbance. وَتَلْبِيسُهَا نَفْسَهَا بَدَلَ أُخْتِهَا. Remember we said that she wanted to deceive by putting herself in the position of her sister, sleeping instead of her sister, and in this way to deceive. This is example for تسويل النفس الأمارة مطالبها الخسيسة وترويجها على أنها مصالح حقيقية. Nafs Ammara is very, unfortunately, vicious. Doesn't all the time tells us clearly what she wants. Nafs Ammara doesn't say, I want money, I want fame, I want power. No. Finds a way to deceive. You must be ruling. You must get all the reward of, teaching, or, you must have the greatest, for example, organization. You mosque must be the greatest mosque. So, anyway, finds a way to decorate its mean request. Khasisa means mean, low. So she decorates her mean and lower desires and requests and presents them as if they are true masalih, true interests, to deceive us. This woman presented herself in the in place of her sister and wanted to deceive Absal. This is an example of Nafs Ammara. Very, I think, powerful message is here. وَالْبَرْقُ اللَّامِعْ مِنَ الْغَيْمِ الْمُظْلِمِ. Barq al-Lami' means the flash, the thunder, which was illuminating and giving light instead of غيم المظلم, a cloud which was making dark, means that sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a kind of radiation, and that radiation is a kind of jazba. One of the, we had before in introduction to Islamic mysticism, jazbatun min jazabat al-haq. Sometimes a radiation of light comes and you would be attracted, and if you listen to that and follow that, it can change your life. So when you are busy with al-umur al-faniya, the things which perish, sometimes al-khatwatul ilahiyya, a light comes, and the reason it's called khatwa because it doesn't let your eyes to see properly. So that flash comes and things become clear. Iz'ajuhu lil mar'a, we said that he distanced that woman and annoyed her. I'radul aql anil hawa, it stands for aql, refusing to follow our whims. وَفَتْحُهُ الْبِلَادِ لِأَخِي, we said he conquered countries for his brother. اطلاع النفس بالقوة النظرية على الجبروت والملكوت. Nafs Natiq was the brother who was king, Salaamaan. So Salaamaan, with his help of his brother who was Aql Nazari, was able to conquer not other countries. As I said, this is symbolic, means he was able to reach Jabarut and Malakut, the world of God and the world of spirits. So he was able to understand something about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a special way, and something about spirits and angels. وَتَرَقِّيهَا إِلَى الْعَالَمِ الْإِلَهِ, he was able to rise to the divine realm. Not that becomes part of the divine, it means that having some understanding and some nearness. وَقُدْرَتُهَا بِالْقُوَّةِ الْعَمَلِيَّةِ عَلَى حُسْنِ تَدْبِيرِهَا فِي مَصَالِحِ بَدَنِهَا. And when we said everything was going well in the country, it means that he was able to use aql amali, the practical intellect, in order to run things properly. Even all the needs of the body must be met. وَفِي نَظْمِ أُمُورِ الْمَنَازِلِ وَالْمُدُنِ, because aql amali has different branches. In the past, they said part of his akhlaq, which is for yourself, part of his tadbirul manzil, management of the house, and part of its siyasat mudun, is politics. So domestic economy and politics and ethics, these are different branches of aql amali. وَلِذَلِكَ سَمَّاهُ بِأَوَّلِ ذِي قَرْنَيْنِ, and this is why he was given this name by Ibn Sina, or the one who has made this story, that he was the first Zi Qarnayn, because this is a title which is given لَمَنْ كَانَ يَمْلِكُ الْخَافِقَيْنِ, for the one who was ruling Khafiqain. Khafiqain means east and west. Khafaqa means to move, as taraba. So because layl and nahar, day and night, in the horizons, in ufuq, come and go, therefore khafiq is used for horizon, for sharq and gharb. So if someone rules all over the world, they used to say yamlikul khafiqain. Warafdul jayshilah, we said she distributed some money and the commanders didn't cooperate with Absaal, they abandoned him. Means انقطاع القوى الحسية والخيالية والوهمية عنها عند عروجها إلى الملأ الأعلى. When nafs natiqah rises to the highest realm, then the faculties which are lower, which are responsible for sensation or imagination or understanding particular things which are inside us. You remember, maybe we had the meaning of wahm. What does wahm mean? And according to Sheikh Muzaffar, wahm means, for example, understanding of something, like some feelings, some emotions which are particular, but they are not understood by five senses. It can mean also other things. In any case, these powers or faculties that we have for sensation and imagination and fantasy, they would not be coming with you when you want to rise. You have to leave them, and they will leave you and separate from you. You will be more focused, because these always bring distractions, always bring disturbances. وَفُتُورُ تِلْكَ الْقُوَى. We said they became weak. Means they became weak because nafs is not paying attention. لَعَدَمِ الْتِفَاتِهِ إِلَيْهَا. Nafs al-natiqah or aql is not paying attention. We said a wild female animal looked after him when he was injured. وَتَغْذِيَتُهُ بِاللَّبَنِ الْوَحْشِ. He used milk of that wild animal. إفاضة الكمال إليه أما فوقه من المفارقات لهذا العالم. Wahsh here doesn't mean bad thing. Wahsh here means something which is not, common. Something which is wild here stood for what? For something which is not common. It's not a domestic animal. It's something beyond, something not accessible for ordinary people. They can never have such experience. So it means that Kamal, perfection, was being given from a higher realm, not from an ordinary realm. Then we said that Salaamaan, when he thought his brother is killed and he was away from his brother, he became very upset. اختلال حال سلامان لفقده أبصالا اضطراب النفس عند إهمالها بتدبيرها شغلا بما تحتها. That is when nafs is busy with things which are under him or her and becomes very disturbed. Because this Salaamaan needed what? Needed aql. Aql is away from him. The brother Absaal is away from him. So Salaamaan himself had to run the country, and this was making him very sad. Means that our nafs, if instead of being busy with higher realms, just keeps running this world, becomes very sad. وَرُجُوءُهُ إِلَىٰ أَخِيهِ. We said Absaal, when he became well, he went back to his brother. Means التفات العقل إلى انتظام مصالحه في تدبيره البدن. Means aql is paying attention to the body to run things and make sure that the interests are achieved. At-Tabikh, we said that woman gave money to Tabikh, to the one who cooks, and Ta'im, the one who was giving food. Tabikh huwa al-quwwatu al-ghadabiyya. It stands for faculty for anger, which the reason it is called Tabikh here, because you cook with fire. Ghazab is like fire. Anger is like fire. And when you want to, especially revenge, there is a fire. So al-quwwatu al-ghadabiyyatu al-mushta'ilatu 'inda talab al-intiqam. Because this woman wanted to do revenge, and this revenge was not a good revenge. It was just anger, not aql. وَالطَّاعِمُ هُوَ الْقُوَّةُ الشَّهَوِيَّةُ. The one who was giving the food, not the one who was making food, the one who was giving food, this stands for shahwa, because brings what your body needs, brings the food, the body needs this. وَتَوَاطُعُهُمْ عَلَى حَلَاكِ أَبْصَالٍ. We said that woman and Ta'im and Tabikh conspired. They worked together and made this plan. This refers to إِزْمِحْلَالِ الْعَقْلِ فِي أَرْذَلِ الْعُمُرِ. When you become very old, then there is a chance that your rational capacity may go into decline. Not always, but in some people it can happen. Of course, we say that this is about the connection between body and soul. Soul can be still in its own very good place and good condition. I don't want to go to that detail. But anyway, nafs ammara, if gets used to listening to qadhab and shahwa, then it becomes very weak in understanding and intelligence, especially when you are old, because now you don't have that much power to resist against qadhab and shahwa. But we said Salaamaan realized and found that they poisoned his brother and he killed them. This means that nafs natiqah left using bodily faculties in the end of his life, and therefore anger and shahwa were killed, and he managed to free himself. If you can go to the next page. I'm just finishing, just if you bear with me a few minutes, we will finish inshallah. Then we said Salaamaan left the kingdom and delegated the power to some of his allies. It means that nafs would no longer want to run the body, and body would be run by something else. So this is the interpretation according to what Sheikh al-Ra'is has mentioned. And مما يؤيد أنه قصد هذه القصة أنه ذكر. This doubt should not be there. It must be maybe comma. What also supports that he meant this story is that he mentioned in his essay or treatise on Qadha and Qadar Qissata Salaamaan wa Absaal, and over there he mentioned meanings of barq. We said a flash of light came. He mentions what is the meaning of that flash of light that was on the face of that woman and made her known, disclose her identity to Absaal. So this showed that Salaamaan must have, Salaamaan and Absaal must be the same figures that we have in this story. In any case, Khaja says, هذا ما اتضح لنا من أمر هذه القصة. This is what became, known to us and clear to us about this story. وما أوردت القصة بعبارة الشيخ. I didn't mention the story according to the wording of the Sheikh. لألا يطول الكتاب, so that this book doesn't become long. So what is important is that Ibn al-Ra'is told us at the beginning of Namat Tase that there is a story, and if you come across that story, fa'alam, you must know that Salaamaan is an example of your nafs and Absaal is your rank in Irfan. Now, by having this story, maybe he meant that you can better appreciate that what a big difference it makes when you are on a spiritual journey and you rise on the ladder of Irfan to the extent that you can have something like Absaal, a very intelligent, pious, virtuous, capable person. And that is your nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or that is your perfection in Irfan, or according to Masha'in, that is your perfection in Aql. So this was just a kind of preparation. Insha'Allah, from the next session we will start with a very important discussion about the distinction between zuhd and ibadah and irfan. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to understand better and to practice inshallah better, and be always alert, especially with the temptations and with the deceptions of our nafs ammara. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.